caused the mud flood, where buildings all over the world are partially buried? Or how do you level mountains? Or what starts the day of the wrath of the Lamb with the sixth seal? So let's start our study with the New Madrid earthquakes. These were the biggest earthquakes in American history. They occurred in the central Mississippi Valley, but were felt as far away as New York City, Boston, Montreal, and Washington, D.C. President James Madison and his wife Dolly felt them in the White House. Church bells rang in Boston. From December 16, 1811 through March of 1812, there were over 2,000 earthquakes in the central Midwest. So leading up to these big ones, so we could speculate that leading up to the Day of Hashem, there may be an increase in earthquake activity. And between 6,000 to 10,000 earthquakes in the Bootheel of Missouri, where New Madrid is located near the junction of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. Quite a few warnings. In the known history of the world, no other earthquakes have lasted so long or produced so much evidence of damage as the New Madrid earthquakes, and yet they're rarely talked about. 3 of the earthquakes are on the list of America's top earthquakes. The first one on December 16, 1811, a magnitude of 8.1 on the Richter scale, and the second on January 23, 1812. So I guess there wasn't much warning for the first one. And the third on February 7, 1812, at as much as 8.8 magnitude. The Mississippi ran backwards, getting over cracks, as the general area experienced more than 2,000 earthquakes in 5 months. People discovered that most of crevices opening up during an earthquake ran from north to south, and when the earth began moving, they would chop down trees in an east-west direction and hold on using the tree as a bridge. There were missing people who were most likely swallowed up by the earth. Some earthquake fissures were as long as 5 miles. I guess this could be significant to the Day of Hashem because all the grass burns up, but there's only a third of the trees that burn up. So if there's an earthquake this significant or a series of earthquakes, it could cause a lot of tsunamis, especially depending on its location, because this is like mid-America. Sand boils. The world's largest sand boil was created by the New Madrid earthquake. It is 1.4 miles long and 136 acres in extent. Located in the Bootheel of Missouri, about 8 miles west of Haiti, Missouri. Locals call it the beach. Other much smaller sand boils are found throughout the area. So this could be the cause of a mud flood. And so I'll try to show you a video where water seeps up and buries this village more today, a more modern thing. But what happens is there's water underneath and it wants to come up, and so it finds a soft spot. It'll be able to come up and make a sand boil. And so this water, if it's coming from really deep, it could be very hot. Seismic tar balls, small pellets up to golf ball sized tar balls are found in sand boils and fissures. They are petroleum that has been solidified or petroliferous nodules. Earthquake lights. Lights flashed from the ground caused by quartz crystals being squeezed. The phenomena is called seismoluminescence. So picturing this as what the Day of Hashem would look like, except maybe even on a larger scale. We know at the end of the Day of Hashem, so there's a series of 3 earthquakes, there is like a larger earthquake than anybody has ever experienced, and I think that one is associated with hail as well. I don't know if like the sea of glass is actually like ice. There was just like a thought of where large hailstones would come from. But this is interesting because it ties in with the 6th seal. Warm water thrown up by an earthquake was lukewarm. It is speculated that the shaking caused the water to heat up and or quartz light heated the water. Earthquake smog. The skies turned dark during the earthquakes, so dark that lighted lamps didn't help. I wonder if this is like darkness that can be felt. I don't know. It's like you can't even, a lamp doesn't see through it, so it's thick. The air smelled bad, and it was hard to breathe. I don't know if you're opening up volcanic vents. It is speculated that it was smog containing dust particles caused by the eruption of warm water into cold air. Loud thunder, sounds of distant thunder and loud explosions accompanied the earthquakes. Animal warnings, people reported strange behavior by animals before the earthquake. They were nervous and excited. Domestic animals became wild and wild animals became tame. Snakes came out of the ground from hibernation. Flocks of ducks and geese landed near people. So if this is supposed to also offset the Great Tribulation, where that starts there, then it could be an explanation of how animals change their behavior, and 1/4 of the earth dies by one of four causes, and one of them being that of wild animals. And then there was this prophet that predicted it, and they want to say that they're more primitive because they learned about it in advance from a team of visiting astronomers. Was that recorded? But anyway, like these prophecies tied in with this was interesting because there was also a comet that preceded this by 5 to 6 years, depending on like 2011, 2012. And this was a time of Indians being wiped out by the U.S. Army. And so this, now he's like acclaimed, but were we justified in wiping them out? And is this kind of like God having enough, and he is beginning to pour out wrath? So leveling mountains could have already started, and these mountains were probably taller because in Indiana you can see where this right here in the central is coming from this mountain range here. So this used to obviously be higher if it's piling up all the way over here in Indiana. So like there's this hump here that came in, and then this is more like natural flat lower, and this is lower here. So it's believed to have flowed into Indiana. And of course, like all these major events are put way back in history, but we can at least show that these mountains must have used to been higher. So when they're saying, fall on us and hide us from the face of the one who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, this can be literal, that the mountains and rocks are like becoming loose like mud, and also like bubbling up, and it's covering them. It literally is falling upon them. So new analysis of the New Madrid region suggests that even some modern quakes are actually aftershocks more than 200 years in the making. So I understand this would be a separate explanation, that like this mountain range would be like the feathered serpent, And then there's dragons that form mountains and giants that can form mountains. And so they don't belong. It's like tickling the earth. And we want to get back to like the natural ground level of the earth. So the Bible is talking about mountains being picked up and cast into the sea if you have faith. And he says that you will be able to thresh mountains. And so it's almost like having power over the serpent or their descendants, like these great giants that come from the intermarrying of the angels. So it's like that could be an indication of where a fault line could be potentially, like the edge of these mountains. I haven't looked at all the fault lines, but it could be like it's something that doesn't belong on there, so it's kind of loose. So we'll have these explanations of the plates, and that could be true that originally Earth was like broken pottery pieced together, but also on top of Earth, there could have been these large dragons, giants, and things that also weren't natural to it, don't belong there, and Earth kind of doesn't want those things on her. So, like, the point being, at the end, he's getting rid of all these dragons, and they're tied in with things that are exalted and lifted up against him, just like the devil, who's called a dragon. So if this was like a beginning attack, or there could have been attacks before this too, on this kingdom of the eagle, the final kingdom that's also depicted as a dragon, that's why they wouldn't want to publicize this event. It could have been like a defeat for them, where it also causes these buildings all over America, and then also causes other earthquakes around the world. So it continues, and then the conclusion of it, there's still aftershocks from this event where there could be like a reopening of it, like to finish what he started 200 years ago. So a sand boil is more likely when the water level is high. I guess it's kind of like filling up this groundwater and it wants somewhere to escape. So that explanation for a sand boil. What doesn't make sense about these graphs is we've showed how much our population can increase in 100 years. So we know that the children of Israel were at least 600,000, and it's believed that only 1/5 of them left Egypt. So this doesn't make sense. It seems like around here, the world was basically like wiped out. So 200 years later, are earthquakes picking back up? And so it depends on who you ask. I guess worldwide, it doesn't seem like that, but there's certain areas where there is an increase. And if you look at devastating events, China is usually in the top. So we have like this area of China, Indonesia, but also California and Alaska, like it's centered there on the Pacific Ocean area. And that's also where the sign of the dragon appeared in 2017. And then those videos got taken down. As I understand it, just from where the videos were showing up at, that's where it should have been able to be seen by, like over California, but there were too many fires in California, so people couldn't see it, and lots of like airplane smog. But here you can see increase where just 10 biggest natural disasters where there's a lot, not necessarily an increase, but there's a lot around Japan, most severe earthquakes worldwide, a lot around Japan and China. So comparing that, like the Philippines, I found a graph for Missouri, which shows a drastic increase, and earthquakes in Turkey from 1990 to 2023 shows a drastic increase. Oklahoma earthquake magnitude 3.0 and greater, starting with 1970, they don't have hardly any, and in 2015 2013, there were 889 earthquakes of the 19th century. We got one in 1810 for the Crete earthquake. So you see it's like 10 years apart. And then the New Madrid earthquake start. So you got these three and magnitude 8.1, 7.8, and 8. And then in March 2012, you got the Caucasus earthquakes, estimated 15 to 20,000. So that could have been an 8.0 as well. So it's like it might have woken something up to start a series of earthquakes, because this one in December 1812, the San Juan Capistrano earthquake, and then also the Ventura earthquake, it seems to have like being affected because it seems like a lot of earthquakes. And then even like after effects, because if they're saying they're having after effects 200 years later, what else did it awaken within the earth? But then it kind of spreads out again after this. So it is very obvious that there are buildings around the world that have been buried. There'll be different reasons given, like they wanted to build a road, so they buried the entire town instead of demolishing it first, or just not even understanding why, but there's just 15 feet of sediment on top of these colonial period buildings. So we're told that just New Madrid was destroyed, but an earthquake this big, it seems like it should have more record of destruction than what we are given. This is what this person says. Yes and no. I believe you are referencing the New Madrid earthquake. It is often glossed over or not mentioned at all in textbooks. Interesting to note, as it liquefied much of the alluvial soil of central United States, with several aftershocks registering almost as high or just as high on the Richter scale as the original quake, with their emanations causing major damage as far west as California and as far east as the Alleghenies. I agree with other posters that it has little to do with most sunken-looking buildings, I guess in other parts of the world, but it could have contributed to other earthquakes in the world maybe. I'm not sure why the New Madrid earthquake is so underrepresented in history, but I do know much of its subsequent damage is erroneously accredited to the War of 1812. So I'll have to do a part 2 because it's my son's bedtime. But he's saying that there was a mining operation gone wrong where they hit a hot pocket of water, and then it ended up burying this nearby town. So I can leave a link for that. But that's it for now. Thanks so much for joining, and Hashem bless you.